Hello and welcome to Math with Mr. P. Today we have a request for a few questions that we're going to go over. Based on looking at these questions, they have to deal with rate and percentages and ratios. So we're going to go ahead and start off with the first question. The first question states that 20 blocks equals 1 mile. Tara walks 13 blocks and her fitness tracker says that she has walked 0.71 miles. So let's go ahead and type this up. So the information given to us saying that 20 blocks equals 1 mile. It also tells us that Tara walks 13 blocks, and that her fitness tracker says she's walked 0.71 miles. Is her tracker correct? So there's a very simple way to solve this. So we should know that 20 blocks equals 1 mile. So as soon as she walks 20 out of the 20 blocks, that equals 1 mile. She has only walked 13 out of the 20 blocks, so we know that her amount walked is going to be less than 1 mile, whatever she's walked. Now, her fitness tracker is saying that 13 out of 20 equals 0.71. So the way we can solve this is to just use this ratio and divide. If she's walked 13 blocks out of 20, and 20 blocks is a mile, so when I divide 13 divided by 20, it'll tell us that she's only walked 0.65 of a mile. So her tracker is wrong. Her tracker has not calculated correctly and is giving her extra time. 13 out of 20 is only 0.65. So if she's trying to walk a whole block, she's only walked, if I jump the decimal twice to the right, she's only walked 65% of that mile. If we give her an extra block, we may get closer to 0.71. There's 0.7. So her tracker is off by approximately 1 block. It is not correct, and it is giving her more time than she actually is. So if her tracker actually worked correctly, it would have said that she walked 0.65 miles instead of the 0.71. So that is example number 1. Question number 2 says Alyssa plans to run 7/8 of a mile on a trail. So let's go ahead and type up the question. Plans to run 7/8 of a mile on a trail. At one point, her mile marker says 0.3 remaining, I believe is what it is. Let me pause the video right here so I can check the question. Okay, and we're back. Okay, so basically she wants to run 7/8 of a mile. 7/8 on a trail. And on that trail, let's pretend this line is the trail, it'll give them little markers telling them, hey, you're at half a mile, you're at, 8/10 of a mile. She's at 0.3 of a mile. Now, she's not running a whole mile. She's running 7/8 of a mile. So we need to figure out how much of that mile she's running. 7/8. So we're going to go ahead and use our calculator and do 7 divided by 8. She is going to run 0.875 or 87.5% of the mile. So she should be at 0.875 to run 7/8 of a mile. Now, when she's running, her tracker says that she's at 0.3. So she's run 3/10 of a mile, or basically, if we round up a little bit, she's almost at 1/3 of a mile. Her goal is to run this much, 0.875. So basically what we can do here is this. We can subtract the 0.3 from this to see how much she has left to do, because her goal is to run 0.875, and so far she's ran 0.3 of a mile. Now that I don't have these numbers on the end, I'm just going to annex zeros, and I'm just going to do basic subtraction. And I'm going to go ahead and use a different color for my answer. 5 minus 0 will give me 5, because I'm not taking anything away. Same thing with 7 minus 0 will be 7. 8 minus 3 will be 5. So if she's planning to run 7/8 of a mile, which is 0.875, and she's already ran 0.3 or 3/10 of a mile, she has 0.575, or if we're doing place value, tenths, hundredths, thousandths, she has 575 thousandths of a mile left to do. So roughly a little bit more than half a mile. She still has more than half a mile to run. Hopefully that made sense. The last question, the last example is saying -17 over -40, which means -17 divided by -40 equals negative 0.4.5. Let me go ahead and pause right here to make sure that I read the question correctly. Okay, so I'm back. So I actually got the questions from a student, so I'm going to actually have to cover this in two ways, because depending on how the question was written will really determine if the work is correct. So if it is in fact -17 over -40, when you divide, basically this means -17 divided by -40. If that is the case, when I divide them, my answer should not be negative. It shouldn't, because they cancel out and it would be positive. Now, if I do this on a calculator, 17 divided by 40 does equal 0.425. So, one of two things. Either one, this is a trick question and they want you to catch the fact that if you divide two negatives, it'll make a positive. Or the question is this: 17 over 40 with the negative symbol on the outside equals this. Now remember, a negative symbol on the outside of a fraction means we do this first, and then the negative symbol will be in our answer, or in this case, right here, making it negative. Now, the other part of the question said show your work. So I'm assuming they don't want us to put it in a calculator. So this is what we would do. So assuming that the question has the negative on the outside, which would bring the negative in the answer, we would do this. So I'm going to go ahead and erase everything. My answer would be negative because this is 17 divided by 40, basically almost like parentheses with the negative coming to the answer. Now what I would need to do is do 17 divided by 40. 40 cannot go into 17, so I have to put a 0. Now I'm going to annex a 0, which means I need to put a decimal there. Now I can guess and check to see how many times 40 will go into 170. I'm going to guess and check 4 because it's going to be 160. So it'll go in 160, or 4 times, which will be 160. 0 minus 0 is 0. 7 minus 6 is 1. 1 minus 1 is 0. So I have 10 left over, but I want a decimal answer. So I'm going to keep going. Annex another 0. 40 can go into 100, I believe, twice, which would be 80. Because 3 times would be 120. That will leave 20 left over. 0 minus 0 is 0. 0 minus 8 can't do, but if I borrow from this 1, the 0 already becomes 10 anyway. So 10 minus 8 is 2. 40 cannot go into 20. Annex a 0. And I believe my answer should be 5. So let's see, 40 multiplied by 5, we're guessing and checking, it is 200, so it is 5. And this is a terminating decimal, meaning we have nothing left over. This would be our work shown if this is really what they want. They want us to show our work. There it is. And then don't forget, because the negative symbol was on the outside of this question, this gets done, which is 0.425. But my negative symbol needs to come into the answer, so it'll be negative 0.425. That decimal did not show up. There we go. I'll go ahead and get rid of this extra negative that we put from carrying over. And that's how I would show my work. Again, if the question actually is -17 divided by -40, then my answer is not negative 0.425 because the two negatives will cancel each other out. Remember, anytime you divide a negative by a negative, it would be a positive. It would still be the exact same answer, but just not negative. It would be positive 0.425. So hopefully that helps. Those are the questions that I was given. Again, even if you're not a student or you're a former student, whatever, if you ever need math help, please reach out and let me know. I can make these quick videos on YouTube and upload them. So I hope this helps. Thank you to the student who sent in these questions. And then anybody else that finds this, I hope this helped. This has been Mr. P, and I'll catch you guys on the next lesson. Bye.